Welcome to The Human Side of Money, a show dedicated to equipping financial advisors with the skill set required to work with emotional human beings on the emotionally charged topic of money. You'll get practical tips and insights on applying behavioral finance into your practice from conversations with fellow advisors, industry consultants, and experts in the fields of behavior, psychology, communication, and more. Each episode is designed to help you enhance client outcomes and forever change the trajectory of your advisory business. Now here's your host, Brendan Frazier.
Danielle Howard, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Brendan.
I'm very excited to have you for a number of reasons, but here's the one. I hate to pull up one at the very beginning, like it's just the one. Here's the one that keeps sticking out to me, even as I was thinking about it coming into today, is over the last several years of doing this podcast, talking with advisors, working with advisors that say, hey, I really want to get better at the human side. I know it's important, but I need to figure out a way to do it, a way to implement it, a way to bring it to life. They all want to know how to do it, but it's not that easy. So you go through these iterations of like, oh, I heard an idea here, an idea there. I heard a question here, a question there. And then you also have certain trainings or designations, places you can go to learn how to do this. They sort of teach you a more prescriptive, process-driven approach. So you think about things like the BFA, Behavioral Financial Advisor Designation, Money Quotient, Kinder, and I'm going to miss a few, and I apologize, but just to like paint the picture of what I'm talking about, you've got those options out there. Now, when I would work with advisors who wanted to do this and wanted to implement it, what you would often find is that even those who went through the trainings to show them how to do it, right? You'd find that they would, a couple of years removed, they had either basically stopped doing, hadn't really kept doing what they were told, or like they kept a few things from it, but they didn't. Very, very rarely would you find someone that went through it, was told what to do, did it, and then continued to do it, right? And I don't think that's a good or a bad thing. I think it's just the reality of the situation. And I think part of that comes back to like, we kind of want to be in control. We want to know what to do. We don't necessarily want to be told what to do. We want to kind of create our own thing, right? And like what feels best to us. And so what I also know from all of that is that advisors love listening to or thinking about or hearing from other advisors who have been through these trainings, who have tried different things and how they're bringing it to life themselves on their own. Like there's something feels good about being like, okay, maybe I haven't done it all, but I know somebody that has, and here's how they're applying it. They're not doing it the exact way, but they've built their own version of it. And that's quite possibly the longest intro I've ever given to any episode of the podcast. But I think it's important as a way to say that one of the reasons that I'm excited that you're here is because you have done a lot of these things. You've been through the trainings, you've tried, you've tested, you've experimented. So you can give us some good wisdom and knowledge on what you liked, what didn't, and how it's come to be today, which is what I do want to get to, and we will get to. But before we get to that, what I'd really like to hear as the kickoff, as the foundation, is to get there, you must have had a moment, you must have had a time, you must have had something happen to where you realized, hey, you know what? I think I need to do things a little bit differently. Or maybe you would say you did it that way from the very beginning, but we find most people have these moments of there's another aspect to this planning work and to the relationship that I want to bring in and go deeper. So why don't we start with when did that happen for you before we get into what it's evolved into and become today?
All right. I think I'm probably an outlier then, because I think it is pretty much in my DNA to do things a little bit differently all along. So getting into this business kind of from the traditional track 30 years ago, the insurance side, every financial plan leads to a product sale, and that not quite sitting right with me, along with the fact that I just felt like there had to be more. And, long story short, I've been in this industry for a while. I've sensed the brokenness of what we do as a profession. There's so much good stuff to it. We bring so much good to the table, and it has been very prescriptive. So from the very beginning, I felt that I needed to do something a little bit differently. I'm very grateful to get the trainings that I did early on in the insurance arena, and then, getting my Series 7 and the 66, all of the different licensing and kind of going the traditional education route. And then being able to come into this industry where some folks were starting to talk about it differently, whether it was George Kinder, whether it was, Dick Wagner, Carol Anderson, all of these folks that early on felt the same way. And so knowing that there were other people out there just, reinvigorated and built in me that it's okay to think about it differently. I am also a cook, and we were talking before the show a little bit about how to create these analogies with real life experiences. And I'm one of these people that just looks in the fridge and goes, okay, how can we put all this together, and what does it need, and what am I going for here, and add and detract and keep it on the stove for forever. That to me was what financial planning was supposed to look like, kind of this messy, ongoing stew that just needed to you keep adding stuff, and to look how do you use what you have already and make it the best you can be until you get something new and there's new stuff growing in the garden, etc. So I've had a lot of fun with it. I've also came from, I'm up in a small valley there. I never worked for a large company. I got into this business through marriage, through supporting a husband who was in the insurance side of it, learning a lot, having a lot of amazing people, mentors, folks that were sharing ideas, thought leaders, and the opportunity to glean off of all of their research and work and then make it my own. So that's kind of been in my DNA since the very, very beginning. It wasn't like, I definitely have my moments that why the financial planning industry, that you experience a little pain and go, I want to keep others from experiencing this. And, I've played off of that. And I just think that it has just been a continuous evolution of the creative nature. I'm not grab a paintbrush or sit at the potter's wheel. I am creative with the financial aspect.
Where were you timeline wise when you were sitting there thinking, or had the realization that maybe that there had to be more, that things could be done different? And I guess I mean both truly like timeline, like when was this chronologically, what year, and then where were you, what were you doing at that point?
I think early on, I kind of got into the business in the late 90s. And, kids were young. I was coming in and helping marketing, started looking at, maybe just doing some educational workshops around budgeting, and also brought in a spiritual component of it, looking at, from a Christian worldview lens of, how do we be good stewards with this money thing? So early on, got a combination of the traditional trajectory. Let's learn about the insurance side. Let's sit down, have conversations with people about how to build a budget, about how to make good decisions around money, about how to look at their financial lives with a little bit more context than just how do we get to a goal. And then having it evolve through, again, the interactions of the forefront leaders in the industry in the early 2000s, going independent, leaving the insurance track in 2000, start looking at, AUM model. What does it mean to charge for a plan? Taking that big step of going, oh my goodness, I ask for compensation to give advice versus just, take a commission off of a product.
Well, and you used to do the plan for free, right? It's like, here's the plan that led. So it's like, I've done this for free. How am I going to charge money for this thing?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's been nice to watch the industry changing and to look at it. Still kind of blows me away how many people are still on that track, right or wrong, no judgment. But for me, it was that opportunity to really start digging deeper and then take it further than just the traditional CFP standard of financial planning to start looking at that behavioral aspect, that mindset around money component, and that there was more and more research, about different aspects of it, whether it was Kahneman's and, all of the behavioral stuff, or looking at, neuroplasticity and how that works in our brains, and looking at how adult learning theory kind of comes into play, and what we want to do with talking about money in groups. That it isn't just the singular, I'm doing this on my own and I'm alone in my thoughts about whether they're good or bad about money. But there's maybe some narrative that if we start sharing these narratives, we can look at shifting them. And over time, as advisors, normalizing that conversations around money are not easy, but we can do this together. And through this process, we can start shifting how we all look at money, handle money, make our decisions about money, and have healthy relationships with it.
Do you remember whether there was a gateway into this, we'll call it human side, just for the sake of this podcast, of money? Like, I know for some people, I know they'll say like, yeah, my eyes really opened when I heard this or read this or listened to this. I know Dick Wagner, he's been mentioned on here before. There's I guess a conference that he and George Kinder were at in like 1995. It's been mentioned a couple times on here.
Nasruddin, yeah.
Yes, yeah. And so I'm just wondering, was there, as you look back on it, can you remember, was there a specific, like, maybe, I guess we could look at it and say light bulb moment, or even just like gateway that opened your eyes and went, this is it?
I think reading the book The Soul of Money by Lynn Twist really had a profound impact on me. That idea that there's these lies about money, scarcity versus abundance, that more is better, that, money will solve the problems, and how people look at money, handle money, their identity around money. That had a pretty big impact. And I read her, first iteration of that back in the, late 90s. And she's done a lot of continuous work in that area.
Were you working with clients at this point as you were reading it?
Yeah.
Okay. So probably having these thoughts, like reading it going, wow, this is good. Wow. Like, man, light bulb moments, your mind's being blown. You're thinking like, okay, this is good. How do I bring this into the work that I do with clients? Is that right? Was that a thought running through your mind?
Yes. And then it's like, okay, how can I would start doing like little workshops at the local libraries. Let's read the book and just talk about this and have a conversation. I get one or two people. And, I think, again, that idea of just talking about it and questioning, what we think about money. Is this all true all the time? And is there something different that could play into it? And, again, to me, there's so many, we look at all aspects of the, human relationship, the human experience. It's relational, it's financial, it's physical, it's spiritual, mental. There's so many different aspects of it. And I remember another big light bulb moment was getting my training through Money Quotient and their wheel of life, and looking at where do you fall on these spokes of the wheel, whether it's in your community or your personal growth or your financial life, and knowing that there's financial implications to all of these different spokes on our wheel that we need to address ongoing. Another fallacy in our industry: you don't put together a financial plan. This is an area that we've seen a lot of change in, but you used to deliver the plan. Let's put that nice binder together, and here's your plan. Follow the plan. You'll get where you want to go. That doesn't exist. It really is very fluid, and we need to look at where you're at, where you're going, and then what are the continuous trajectory shifts that we need to make along the way, whether it's around our financial decisions or the tools that we're using, tax issues. There's no one way to do this, and we just need to keep questioning ourselves. Are we on the right trajectory for where we want to be headed?
So just to be clear, if anybody's wondering, you're saying that giving somebody a thick binder and piece of paper with like outlining exactly what they should do and handing it to them doesn't mean that they're definitely 100% of the time going to do it. Is that the point? Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, we know that. They take it home, and we still do for many of our clients. We still do give them a binder. We work with a lot of pre-retirees. They still like paper.
Sure.
And I know there's a lot of, financial plans that are now, just all online, and it's again, let's just check in on this every year, and it's all, software oriented.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with a paper plan, but when I set one down in front of a client, this is as good as the moment I'm setting it on the table, or when I printed it, when Molly printed it out yesterday, that it is now something has changed, and we just need to know that it is ever changing. We need to embrace change as a fact in life, and that we need to just make these continuous minutia adjustments. Again, looking at our own mindsets around money too, those need to be adjusted continuously. And I think human nature, that's challenging. We resist change, or we go into our, protect, fight, flight, all of that brain stuff that we know works against us, especially when it comes to money.
Yeah. I remember hearing for the first time when somebody had a hard copy financial plan, and they were like, yeah, so as you're looking at this, look at it now, look away, look back, and it will already be somewhat outdated. Like something's changed. So just like setting the expectation for the clients, just saying like, hey, if you take this home with you, just know that if you go back and reference it 6 months from now, there's a chance. All right. We can say things will definitely have changed. There's a chance that it may be completely outdated, right? This isn't something that just sits in stone. It's a dynamic thing that we have to be aware of. It like things do change over time. I remember hearing that, and I know, and I think now maybe it's more commonplace, but you hear that and you're like, oh yeah, that's a good point and a good reminder. You mentioned Money Quotient and going through that training? What other trainings or resources or places have you gone and learned from to accumulate some of this knowledge over time, or I guess even accumulate tools, resources, and ideas for processes?
Boy, again, so many, the work of Brad and Ted Klontz, George Kinder, Richard Wagner. I also was trained as a certified kingdom advisor, which is a Christian worldview, with Ron Blue and that organization, and tremendous resources from, again, Christian worldview. And I've expanded that now and go, how does that look just from a spiritual side, not necessarily just any one belief system, but that the spiritual nature of money is vast, wide, and deep, and gets a little woo-woo for folks. So if they're more on the logical number crunching, let's keep it focused on numbers, is a bit tough to to look at. But I think it also has to be authentically you, so that when I've read books or looked at what fits for me at this particular time, it has to sit well in my gut. It has to feel right. I think there's been an ongoing exploration of how this plays out. Gail Coleman, I just read her book in the last couple of years. I think it's The Body of Money, but that's talking about the somatic experience, of where does these money feelings, these issues around money sit in our body, which, 10 years ago, I would have gone, oh, that's a little out there for me. And now I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm starting to see that. And so it's nice to have all of these different pieces that are out there, that when you do get a client in the office or you are having a conversation with a group or a workshop, that you can kind of pull out and go, let's try this on. And it's also been the base, the foundation, all of these different pieces that I've started pulling together to kind of create my processes, whether it's working with our clients on the journey of financial health or the second mountain journey, or in my workshops that I do with folks, financial fingerprints to footprints. But I just encourage advisors to go, this has to be real for you. We talked, again, a bit before the show about what we should be doing as advisors. Oh, we should do a podcast. Oh, we should be doing this. We should be. But if it doesn't sit with you, if it isn't in your wheelhouse and doesn't feel good, then why do that route? Not everybody is set up to write a blog. I love writing. I feel like I'm caught. There's stuff in here that needs to come out. So, I wrote a book. I do the blogs. I did the podcasting for a while, but it needs to be real for you. So stay with your authenticity and your integrity.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, especially in terms of why you see some people that go through some of these programs and they don't come back and for the rest of their career implement it step by step, A to Z, the exact same way from that point moving forward, because it has to be authentic to you. You have to fully believe in every step. It's kind of like along those lines. Whenever somebody comes to me and they say, hey, should I start a podcast? Or, hey, okay, I'm going to start a podcast. What do I need to know? How do I make it successful? All those type of questions. It's like one of the very first things I'll always ask is have you tried it yet? Do you think you'll like it? And is it do you think it'll be fun and enjoyable? Right. And they're like, well, surely, right? And it's like, okay, whatever, just go try it first. If you're going to do solo episodes, go try recording 3. And are you lighting up while you do it, or does it feel like a grind? Because the odds are, if it feels like a grind, you're probably not going to stick with it because you aren't enjoying it, because it takes time, right? Or if you're going to do guest episodes, do a few practice runs and see, do I enjoy this? Do I enjoy the act of it? And in other words, so people are always like, okay, what's the key? How do you do it? And I'm always like, well, the only thing that I know for sure when it comes to this is I just genuinely look forward to recording podcasts. It's one of the highlights of my week when I look at my calendar and it's like, oh yeah, I get to have that conversation with Danielle today. I've been waiting to ask her some of these questions. And so we're a little bit off topic here, but I think it's still relevant to everybody, right? It's you can't do it all. And I think one of the filters as far as what should you do is, do I like it, enjoy it? Do I have fun with it? Now, is it the only filter? No, right? You still need to decide. I also like and enjoy and have fun playing golf, but is that necessarily going to be great
right.
for... Yeah, so it has to make sense. But anyways, I'm glad you said that, because I think it's a good way to think about being authentic as well. Be authentic to the things that you like and enjoy.
Yeah.
I know this is a question that a lot of people come to eventually. They go, where do I start? How do I start? So yes, we can look at you now, and we'll talk about where it's at now, what it looks like. But how did you? I'm sure it's evolved over time. So do you remember when you decided hey, I want to do a little bit more as far as diving in and going beyond the numbers and whatever it looked like at that point? Maybe you'd gone through some of the trainings and you're like, okay, I want to start doing some of this. What did it look like? Did you just launch in and go, all right, here are the 3 kinder questions. My next meeting tomorrow, I'm going to do it. Or how did you think, how did you do it? And how do you think through the best way to start dipping your toes in those waters?
I think you have to do the work yourself. So specifically with the kinder 3 questions, that was another life changer. My former husband and I were in business together, and loved to have dinner parties. So we had some folks over for dinner. I'd been reading, George Kinder's work, and I thought, okay, let's pop this one up for a dinner topic and go through the 3 questions. And afterwards, we had a hard talk about living at that life of without regret. And he wanted to go into teaching. And it's like, okay, well, if this is for real, we have some big changes to make. So we had to do this work ourselves. It was the same with the training and money question. They have you do the work yourself before you can take this to clients. And for me, doing that work impressed upon me how powerful it can be and how important it is. And I think I also was seeing, handing people their plans or giving them the prescription of, here's what you need to do to get to where you want to be. It wasn't landing. And so there's a problem here. We're talking to clients, but they're not taking the advice or they're not following through. And what needs to change there? So for me, I wanted to come up with something that would help people understand who they are around money. And let's see, James Clear in Atomic Habits, he talks about that idea of having your goals, having your processes to reach those goals. And then the third part is that identity, that you have to be that person. If you're going to stop smoking, you have to be a non-smoker. If you're going to lose weight, you have to be a person who makes healthy choices around their food. So to incorporate that identity, I was seeing a break from that in all of our financial plans. Here we, ask people what their goals are, and we ask them, where do you want to be at 65? And I want to be retired. I want to drive that line in the sand and step over it. And so the idea of, okay, well, you need to save this much in this vehicle at this rate of return and you'll get there. But unless they're taking on that identity of, I am a saver and a wise spender, they're not going to get there. So I wanted to create something that incorporated that identity component of it. And looking at the work of Ted and Brad Klontz and looking at other research out there, as a lot now around this area of self-directed neuroplasticity, that idea that we can intentionally restructure, rewire our brains based on, our thoughts and our emotions and our behaviors. It's like, oh my goodness, there's this whole new body of work out there that supports the idea of having some sort of a process with clients that has them reflect on who they are as a earner, a saver, a spender, a giver, and questioning that identity, maybe looking at different ways to look at it if they want to try on something different. And so it excited me. I found a problem. I did the work myself, still doing the work. I think it's, it's lifelong. We're never done with our work. And bringing that to the table for current clients and in different workshops, and knowing that I just kind of get to keep adding onto it, changing it, building it, and bringing it to the world.
So for anybody that doesn't know, a minute ago, Danielle, you mentioned how you were at dinner and you decided let's go with these 3 kinder questions. By the way, okay, well, let me finish that first. So the third question, when she mentioned regret, the third question is basically around regret and going, if you find out that you get a terminal diagnosis and you only have 24 hours to live, what are the things you would regret the most? Who have you not become? That's the kind of the gist of it, right? So that's when she said that, that's what she meant. If anybody's not familiar, now if take us to that dinner table for a second. Is this just you and your husband, or their friends there?
It was a group of friends. There's probably six or 8 of us. So, great conversation. And it was the after.
Bold.
Yeah, it was bold.
Now, had you been through the training, or did you just hear about the questions? Like, what made you think to even go that route?
I'm not good about talking pop culture and what teams are winning. So
yeah. You're like, hey, if we're gonna be together, let's dive in. Let's do life.
Yeah, that's just kind of how I roll. So that was part of it. And I obviously had I don't remember exactly. I did not go through George Kinder's training, but I had read, the books, was very familiar with the 3 questions. I'd started asking those questions in client meetings, and just sounded like a good topic for dinner conversation.
And so out of that, that night at dinner, your husband realizes that he wants to teach. And so up and leaves his job and goes and becomes a teacher.
Yeah. And this was this is heading into 2005, 6. We made the big change. He fully entered into teaching, and I was starting a financial life planning practice, leaving behind the commission world right as we headed into the Great Recession. And it was pretty scary. But it was life-changing. I mean, to have him be able to pursue something that was near and dear to his heart gave him another 10 years of a career track that was very fulfilling. So I think, doing the work yourself, being brave and entering into that space, being bold and asking the tough questions, doing the hard work, and being able to come out the other side of it, with feeling better about who you are in the world. It's pretty cool.
Well, George was on episode 20, went through the process with us in episode 20. And in that conversation, he had mentioned how he has advisors that come do the training. They go through it. And as they go through it, they realize that they don't want to be in this job anymore, in this line of work anymore. So I guess your husband wasn't one of the ones that was at the training realizing it, but he's one of the ones that went, hey, I'm glad we did these questions because I don't necessarily want to be an advisor anymore. So again, that was episode 20. Episode 36, we had Scott Frank on, who uses the process in his practice. If anybody wants to know more about what it looks like to incorporate it. And then episodes 31 and 32, we had Amy Mullen on from Money Quotient. By the way, if anybody wants to know more about Money Quotient and their processes, because this isn't to talk about those. This is to talk about how you were a cook and you've created something from all of your learnings and blended them together into something awesome. Let's talk about, tell us a little bit about how you're bringing it to life today. What is this gourmet meal that you've cooked and and what it looks like in today's day and age, and the work that you're doing day in and day out?
So we have a process called Journey of Financial Health, and it's a little more extensive than just delivering the binder. It's understanding that people, they need a trajectory, they need a plan. How are we walking alongside them to accomplish, whether it's a couple of specific steps or areas that they, are designing their version of true wealth. We have that. And within that process, I have a part of it is called, it's a workshop that I do outside the financial planning engagement as well with small groups, large groups. And as part of our financial planning process, it's an opportunity to sit down with clients and dig into what is your financial fingerprint and what is the footprint that you want to step into. And it's a skeleton process that it's a framework that I've created, again, based on all of this amazing, the people who have gone before me, and I stand on their shoulders, to bring something into the planning engagement that will help people see who they are, maybe who they want to be, or who they want to work towards being, and support them in doing that. Again, the idea that we can rewire our brains, our thought, our belief systems, our behaviors, and what it would be a tangible way to be looking at that. So we put this together in a formal process that looks at, your money scripts and your money mindsets. Where did that come from? Early money memories. All of the Klotz's work on early money memories. Just write them all down. Just, attached to what was their first memory around earning or giving or saving or investing, and just write it all down. Then we take that and we look at what script came out of that. From your memories, what script came out? Money is bad. Money is the root of all evil. That's just such a misnomer there. Rich people are greedy, or money is good. Money is easy. Money comes and goes. Money is like the wind. And start questioning that, looking at these deeply ingrained belief systems, and that sometimes people feel they're unchangeable and that they are so hardwired, their behaviors follow suit and will lead them in a direction. We want to look at, is that the direction you want to be headed? So how do you identify those money scripts? How do you then start challenging those belief systems, whether they're good or bad? How do you build on them if they're good? How do you challenge them if they're not serving you? Is it universally held? Is it universally true? Is it uniquely true to you because of your life experience? You start gathering evidence to one way or another and start questioning those belief systems. Then you start creating this, what we call repetitive reframing. And this is, how would you want to take on a new identity? What kind of an affirmation do you want to bring into this process? I am financially wise. I am financially healthy. I am a good saver. I can see my time on the beach with my grandkids in 15 years. And it's those I am statements that will start shifting your identity, and then you start taking small actions that align with that identity. And just slowly over time, not only are we rewiring our brains, that neuroplasticity that we can scientifically proven to shift the way our brains work, start putting in behaviors that may be more aligned with what we as advisors are trying to get our clients to undertake. It's so hopefully it's this virtuous cycle that builds on itself.
You said it was called repetitive.
Repetitive affirmations, repetitive reframing, repetitive, like with anything, if you go and lift weights, the muscles, you want to build those muscles. And so when you can reframe your identity, your belief system, and catch yourself, you go to the store and you grab a few things, and then you leave the cart and you walk around the store a couple times and say, do I really need that? Is that an ego need? Is it an ego desire or a soul need? Why am I wanting to buy this? It's getting harder and harder because all we do now is push a button or scan our phone or say yes to. It's getting harder and harder to connect with our mental decisions around money. And I think quite honestly, that is something we need to figure out how to reconnect with, or we're going to keep spiraling in directions that do not serve us well as individuals, families, communities, countries, etc.
Yeah, because we're subconsciously automatically making these money decisions without like pausing and factoring in any type of intention. And what is this doing for us? How is this serving us? Is this how I want to be spending my money? Which, by the way, is exactly what most of these businesses would like for us to do. We won't go into any conspiracy theories here, but it's not an accident that things are getting harder and harder to stop. I mean, it's getting harder and harder to stop spending. Real quick, since I know there's probably some people that are sitting there going, all right, we've mentioned this neuroplasticity term a few times. One thing I keep thinking is that my wife would have loved to have been here. Therapist world, she's big on it. I've learned a little bit from that. Very little, but I have heard coming back to the analogy idea. I have heard an analogy that helped me grasp it, at least as I understand it, anyways. And it was this. They were saying that the concept sort of like if you think about a truck on a ground of dirt, the more times the truck drives back and forth in one direction, like forward and back, forward and back, forward and back, it's just going to, the tracks from the tires are just going to be cut. They're in one place and they get further ingrained, and they're just there. And so the idea of neuroplasticity is you're always just doing the same thing. The track's running the same way, that they're always there. Neuroplasticity is basically trying to form a new track, like turning the truck a different way or moving it and going a different path and forming new routines, behaviors, mindsets, and habits instead of staying stuck on the same path that's been ingrained for years and years and years. But that's my interpretation. If you feel like there's a better
that's great.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure as we use that term that there's at least a little bit of context or understanding around it.
Thank you. Yeah. So how do you look at, putting that new track down and how you want to shift it to lead you in the direction that it will take you to your unique version of true prosperity? It isn't anything that the world is telling you. It's understanding yourself, your values, and connecting with that, making the decisions, getting your mind set in that right way. And this is where, again, all the mindfulness, the visualization, the surrounding yourself with, whether it's reinforcing influence. I know that Brad and the Klontz family with their behavioral work has talked about when you try on a new identity, it's kind of like going to a foreign country. If you are saying, I am a good saver, that means you are going to be doing things differently. You might be hanging out with new people. You may be needing to, instead of going out to dinner, have a potluck at your home. And so it can really be challenging from the standpoint of not being comfortable with it. This is why you need to have the motivation and that identity in the right place, because you want to stick to it. And then you need to surround yourself with the support systems. And this is where we as advisors can really walk alongside our clients to help them see their wins. It's actually a question that I will ask a client coming in. What's your financial win for this week or this month? And
nice. Yeah.
Put that out there because we want to build on their agency. I think our industry is so rife with shame and guilt and you should have, and wow, why didn't you? And if we want people lined up at our doors going, wow, I'm a better person with my money because of my interactions with you, I think we need to help them build on their wins. We need to help them shine the light on when they are doing something differently. We need to be encouragers and cheerleaders and advocates and coaches and do all the things that are, it's hard work. The personal trainers, it's rebuilding muscle.
Yeah. I think one of the fundamental flaws in financial planning is we have to be future focused. Clearly, planning involves the future, but I think we're too future focused because it probably takes turning about 3 pages in any type of behavior change literature before you realize the power of like small wins, progress, and momentum, right? And so if you're always focused on here's where I want to go, here's where we're going, here are the things that we're going to do, here's who you want to be and how we're going to get there, and you're ignoring like all the things that you've done up to this point, how much you've changed up to this point, how much you've grown up to this point, then you're not setting yourself up. You're not setting yourself up for failure. That's not the right way to put it, but you're missing a crucial and important component of building towards the future, which is recognizing what you've done in the past. And it's always bugged me that like we focus so much on the future and not enough on the past. So I love the idea of asking, what was the question? You said, what's a financial, you'll meet with somebody and you'll say, hey, what's a financial win you've had in the last month?
Yeah. Yeah. Tell me and people have a hard time coming up with it. It's the same thing when somebody. I
was going to say, yeah.
You know,
I almost asked you, I was about to ask you, what's a financial win you've had in the past month? And then I thought, well, that might be hard to come up with and I'm going to put it on the spot. And that silence isn't going to make for great podcasting.
But it's good to get you to think, and that's the good thing. Get us all to think a little bit more and to, again, start changing that trajectory of what does it mean to win with your financial decisions, to build on that identity that is authentic, that challenges maybe some of your mindsets with your upbringing, even possibly built into your DNA, that we know there's people out there, great studies on the whole idea of delayed gratification. Some people, that's in their DNA. That's just part of who they are. Right, they can delay. Right. They don't eat the marshmallow or the candy or whatever is set in front of them. And there are others who it's in their DNA. They're just going to take it right up front and not wait for the 5 marshmallows later.
Yeah.
So that, can we build that muscle? You bet. It might take a little time and effort.
I want to come back to and zoom in a little bit more on this fingerprints to footprints process, or I guess you call it a process, but how and where are these happening? I think I heard you say that you do them in groups. Do you also go through this individually with clients? And then along those same lines is, when you're doing it in groups, is it groups of your clients or is it like open to the public kind of thing?
Yes, all of that. I do it as I do it as part of our financial planning engagement, which we call the Journey of Financial Health. It is part of our process, our financial planning engagement. It'll usually either be with a single person or with a couple. I am in the process of writing my next my next season of life as I look at selling my practice. And I have been doing these in workshop format. I would love to be doing them more in advisory organizations where I go in. I do this process with different advisors for their clients. It's really, really powerful to do it in groups. I actually did it pre-COVID for FPA Southern California. And just to give advisors, a taste of what this looks like and how it feels.
Yeah.
To, do the work yourself. I've done it for philanthropic training organizations and local companies here in the Valley. I've done it at churches. So the idea of doing it in more of a group is that you split couples up, you get that whole adult learning theory where you have conversation about some of these, what was your early memory? What is the belief that came out of that memory? If you want to share any of the behaviors that have followed, what do you want to try on as a new identity? And I again have a little workbook that we take folks through, and, great feedback on it, big aha moments, whether we're focusing on your giving mindset, your earning mindset, your saving mindset, your spending mindset. We can look at all of them together. We can look at them individually. So it's a framework that I've used, and again, I'm looking forward to continuing to reiterate and keep adding to and looking at, the continued works that's being done in this area of rewiring our brain's neuroplasticity and what we can do to walk our clients into better places.
I'm fascinated by the idea of a group dynamic because it feels like it's done in many other fields and disciplines and areas. And it's like people love it and they praise it and they're like, yes, you have to do it this way. And I don't feel like it's necessarily found its footing in financial services. I don't know if we don't think about it, we get nervous, but I don't know what it is. Doesn't matter. But what I'm wondering is if I'm an advisor that's listening, I've got a client base that I work with. Would you say, and I'm sitting there going, okay, I kind of like this idea, this process. If I could figure out how to do it, should I do it with clusters and groups of my clients, or should I do it individually, one-on-one at some point?
I think you need to figure that out for yourself and figure out what sits right.
What would you do if I said, all right, I can't figure it out. Like I'm stuck. I'm leaning group, but I'm not sure. I just need to know what seems to be most effective.
I would say group.
And why would you not say? I feel like you're a big believer in group, but you're hesitant to say do group. So I'm curious, why would you not say group?
Why would I not say group?
Like, what's the reason not to do it as a group?
I think you need to get comfortable with it. I think it somewhat depends. I mean, if you as an advisor are wanting to do this yourself, you need to come up with your own process, or, if you want to hire somebody and bring me in to work with your group, that may look different because I've been doing it for a while.
Right.
And I think there's that, you need to figure out what feels good for yourself. Again, do the work yourself, whether it's create something based on your body of research and work and creativity bent and how you want to utilize this stuff, or do you want to find other folks out there? And there's a growing group of us who have been in the advisor space or doing more of the education or money mindfulness component of it. We have to, I guess, wrestle with what we're comfortable doing ourselves, what we want to delegate to others, what value we want to bring to the table for our current clients, or how we want to do it.
When you do it in a group setting or group format, do you have any? Where do you normally do it?
It varies. Conference rooms, I've done it, with 30, 40 people in a large church. I think it sits best with, probably a group size, between 15 and 20, just because of the dynamics that play out, that small group dynamic. How much conversation do you want? How do you keep the group engaged and coming back when you say, hey, eyes at me?
Yeah, right. And how long do these... Do you call it a workshop or
I do call it a workshop, and to me, it is a skeletal structure. What I have with fingerprints to footprints is a skeletal structure. And depending on what an organization would want, it can be anything from a 1-hour session. I did it with a philanthropic group that we just focused on giving. It was an hour and 10 minutes long. Or I can do it as a retreat type of thing where we take a whole day, we go outside, we do journaling, we process, we do financial forgiveness aspect. I mean, it can range from a spectrum of how people want to do it, how deep they want to go, what their time frame is. I'm having fun with it. Yeah,
no, I think this is great. I love it. So if I think about like part of the skeletal structure you mentioned is money, what you said, money scripts, your money mindset, right? Like what are some of the things you believe, and identifying, creating some awareness around those. Is that how I start to uncover, and maybe in this workshop or as part of it, like helping me figure out what my current identity is? I know we talked about like can we rewire our identity and have another identity, but as part of that going, hey, what is my current identity, and then what do I want it to be, and if so, how is the uncovering money scripts? Is that how I start figuring out my current identity?
Yeah, I think that is and I will speak just for myself. If I want to make change in my life, I have to understand, create awareness of what isn't working. So looking at what my current identity around money is, and again, moving away from judgment. I'm not going to beat myself up about it, but create that awareness. You can dig deeper and go, ooh, when I go to the store and buy a whole bunch of stuff that I don't need, how do I feel? Do I feel that in my gut? Do I feel it in my shoulders? And recognize how it's showing up. Is it showing up late at night when you're scrolling and clicking? And so we have to, and we do this very simply with some clients by just having them go through their credit card statements. Where are you spending money at? Let's just create an awareness of where your money is going. And then you can dig into maybe the why of that, and it can go as deep as you want it to go. And I just encourage advisors, if you don't want to be in this space, there's more work in this area, whether it's financial therapists. There's always that line that we are not the people who are going to that place of financial therapy, and that needs to be a line that we don't cross.
For somebody that's kind of looking at it going, I get it conceptually, I believe in it, or I believe I get the idea, but that seems like it could take a lot of work to do that, whether as a group or individually. Or maybe I'm not, like, maybe they're going, or I would go find somebody else, like a financial therapist that would do this for me. But if they're kind of sitting there on the edge and they're wondering, what is why do we do this? What is the benefit of doing this? What would you say to that? Like, how do you think through the benefit of it, the purpose of it?
My why is I want to create financial health for myself and others, because I see so much pain around money, and it's a lifelong journey. We don't ever get it down pat. But when you see our world, when you see clients that are either struggling with they've got great amount of money, they've got enough, and what do they do with that? How do we either help them decide, guide them through what their unique version of true prosperity is and what it means to be financially healthy for them? I can't change anybody, but I can give them tools to look at their own mindset, scripts, belief systems, behaviors that might help them make a little bit of a difference and show up in the world differently, that we can start healing our world.
Yeah. Now, you said this financial fingerprints to footprints processor workshop. It also falls into the bigger picture overall financial planning process, which, if I have it down right, is the journey of financial health. Is that right?
Yes.
So if we've been zoomed in on that specific portion of it, that particular part, if we zoom back out for a second, can you give us the zoomed out high level journey, if you will, of what you go through, what that process looks like?
All right. We start with a discussion, again, using money quotient tools, other tools that we've put into our processes to learn about the client, what's important to them, their values, their goals. We use, the different software, Money Guide Pro, Wealth Studios, use eMoney, use whatever software you need to gather the data, the quantitative side. Use whatever tools you want to figure out that qualitative component. Then we start putting the plan together. We have a work session where we talk about a lot of the moving parts. They're gathering their data. They're giving us their statements, their life insurance policies, their estate planning documents. So we're doing the dictated steps in the financial planning process. We will find out the quantitative goals that they want to move towards. Then we start looking at your why behind that. Are you saying you want to retire at 65 because that's what the world tells you, or what does that really look like to you? We talk about life transitions, that there's so much more that goes on financially than just reaching those goals. And there's a lot of things out there that we need to plan for that are not necessarily goals. How do you plan for long-term care? How do we plan for the unexpected death, a divorce, the stuff that isn't really necessarily the fun stuff in life? And then we'll come up with a plan and action items, and everything from realigning your asset allocation to consolidating all those old 401k accounts to looking at this life insurance and is it serving you? It could be recalibrated? What needs to happen here? Then we help them to, what is their priority on any of these action items? Which one do they want to accomplish first, and set a time? Who's going to do it? What support do you need to do in moving forward with that? The next meeting we'll do the fingerprints to footprints, because if we want them to move forward, we want to support them in becoming the people that will follow through with their action items. And it creates an awareness. It may not create a whole lot of behavior change right away, but it does create the awareness that they can then take and say, well, I just made a choice to spend money on this instead of setting it aside, or instead of paying down debt, or tons of different directions. Then we will follow up for 1 or 2 times. Then depending on if we're managing assets, we come up with, we've got implementation, revisiting, how it plays out moving forward.
Well, before I go back and dive a little deeper, one of the questions I was going to ask is, at what point do they become a client or sign and pay something?
We enter into a financial planning engagement after we have an exploration meeting. So we will explain our processes. We will get to know them, an hour or so, that they meet with myself and my client relationship manager. We get a scope of service. We define what we'll be doing for them. We explain a little bit of our processes. Then we enter into that financial planning engagement. That may or may not mean bringing assets over. The reason why I wanted to create this process is so that I could serve people who didn't necessarily have assets to manage. I think everybody deserves good financial education, good financial planning. And at this juncture of my life was the way I wanted to do it. That's changing too, but for right now, that's kind of what we looked at, is how do we serve people that aren't necessarily going to have assets for us to manage, but that we could give them good, solid advice for a period of time that's going to head them in a good direction.
Yeah. Okay. So in other words, they can pay maybe you call it a financial planning fee, but they can pay a fee up front, flat fee for the service, whether they have assets to manage or not. And then if you do have assets to manage, that's a conversation you can get to around, do you want us to manage them, and figure it out from there.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's say that I have been told by one of your current clients that, very accurately, by the way, that you are amazing, you do a great job, and that I should talk with you. So I reach out and say, hey, Danielle, I've heard great things. I'd like to, learn a little bit more about what it looks like to work with you. Is that where I go to the very first part where you said you learn a little bit about that person, you've got the tools, learn about their values and goals? Is that the very first?
We set up an exploration meeting, which entails some of the money quotient tools, the life satisfaction survey, life transition survey, simple financial statement. And that opens up opportunities for questions to dig deeper with clients. And through that hour-long interaction, they ask us questions, we ask them questions, we get a better feel for what it's going to take if we're a good fit, and then offer to, here's what we'd like to charge you for the engagement, here's how it works, do you want to move forward?
So would you say that those money quotient tools, the transition survey and the life satisfaction survey, the satisfaction survey, do you kind of see those as frameworks to create and guide the conversation? It's like you give them this so that it gives us something they get to reflect, and it gives us something to like focus the conversation, or it sort of guides the conversation in the way that it needs to go.
Yes. Yeah. It's again, that's what I love about some of the tools, whether, Mitch Anthony has all this stuff. There's so much stuff out there and available.
Right.
But it helps us. I was trying to create that all myself. I was trying to kind of create some processes. We're supposed to simplify, standardize, systematize. And at the same time, how do you create a little bit of fluidity in and amongst that? You don't want to be rigid in how you ask these questions. You want it to be, you want to have good listening skills. You want to build on something that a prospect says is important to them. Well, yeah, we're dealing with my parents. They're getting older. Well, that sounds like that's important to you. Let's unpack that a little bit. So it's
instead of going, yeah. Do you have a 401k?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And how much is it?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So for anybody that maybe doesn't know or isn't hasn't seen it, can you kind of briefly describe what the point of the transition survey and the satisfaction survey, and then maybe before you do that, do you send it to the person to fill out prior to coming into the meeting, and then you get a chance to look at it beforehand?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Another thing I like about Money Quotient is that we create live links. So we can send that, we have workflows, we have things set up to where the client calls in, makes an appointment. After talking with Molly, then we send them some prep work, which has links. They go to the link. We get the notification that the link is filled out. We're able to save that, look at it before our meeting. It gives me a little bit of time to come up with some little deeper questions or some clarification questions, and we're ready to go into that exploration meeting.
And can you give a brief idea of what those two different surveys do, or what the purpose of them is?
Yeah. The financial satisfaction is a ranking from 1 to 5. How satisfied are you on different aspects of your financial life? It might be from the insurances, your risk management and insurances. It may be with your relationship, your financial relationships, your ability to communicate about financial matters, the amount that you have been able to save for the future.
Looks like there's 20 of them, but there's 20 of them on there. Yeah. And so when you say it, you take a look at it, so it helps you figure out where to like hone in or go in. Does that mean that if it said, for example, it says, I'm satisfied that I'm on track to build a sufficient retirement nest egg. If I'd put 2, then are you looking to go, hey, where are the areas that that they're not satisfied? Let's focus there. Is that how you think through? I
personally, and again, this is where Money Quotient goes into with a lot of their training, and then you can take it and make it your own.
Hey, remember, that's why you're here, because we want to hear how you've cooked it and made it your own.
So what I personally do is I want them to see their wins. So I will start with, where are you? I see that you're satisfied in your investment style, or, so tell me what has led to that. Why do you feel satisfied in that? Because it usually isn't a quantitative. One of the questions is the level of debt. Are you satisfied with the level of debt you have? Well, tell me a little bit more about that. So I want to build on some wins first. What character assets have you built to get you into a place where you feel satisfied with this particular part of your financial life? Then we may go, which one of these that you're less satisfied with would you feel is a priority for you to address? What would it look like for you to move that 1 to a 2? Then another thing we do with the survey is, after we've worked with somebody, whether they become an advisory client or just at the end of the financial planning engagement, we'll give them the survey again. My hope is that they will have increased in their satisfaction level. And I also share with clients that this is this is fluid too. This is always changing depending on what's going on in your life. Same with the life transition survey, is that most people come to a financial advisor, I just want to get to retirement. It's like, really? There's so many other aspects of your financial life that we want to make sure are on track. It's a very nice laid out way of looking at what life transitions, financial transitions, career transitions, family transitions. I think Mitch Anthony says there's over 600 transitions that we go through in life.
It always blows my mind. In fact, even as I look through this survey, I even though I know it, I scroll through again. I'm like, man, that is so many different transitions. Like we tend to think of the main ones, right? Like, I switched jobs, I moved houses, I had a baby, and you start scrolling through. You're like, oh yeah, I guess all these things are possible.
Yeah. So it just gives you conversation fodder and allows you to dig a little bit deeper and to show that you are providing value. Does it take more time? You bet. Does it build deeper relationships? Of course. Stickier clients. You'll work with probably, I would say, I still have people that call me and go, so how do your returns compare to the benchmarks? I'm like, I'm not the right advisor for you.
Yeah. They meet them. Or they meet my personal benchmark.
Which benchmark are you looking at? Are you, looking at your life goals, or are you looking at the S&P 500?
Yeah.
So
you're like, oh, sorry, it's breaking up. I can't hear you anymore. Click. So actually, you said that it maybe takes longer. Or you said it's good conversation fodder. I think it's good conversation fodder. I think that's true. I think what's more powerful, if we look at it from the client perspective, is it actually forces them to sit down and think about, where am I at and how do I feel about it currently. It helps them identify not just what's on their mind, but other things that they didn't think about. So I think that's two parts. As far as taking longer, I would actually challenge, and I bet, and let me say this, and if you disagree, let me know, but I bet if we think about it differently, you'll think this is the case too. I would challenge anybody that says that to say, this survey, for example, it's actually accelerating where you actually want to get to. So eventually I may find out that you don't feel great about your debt situation, that you don't feel great about the amount of taxes that you're paying. But this is actually almost like a shortcut to getting there without me having to ask a bunch of questions to try to uncover it. This almost brings it to the surface so that we can be aware of it sooner, is sort of how I look at it. Now, that doesn't mean that it takes out the need for talking about it and exploring it and asking them why it came up or asking them why they feel that way. That there's a lot of value in that, but you're not having to spend the same amount of time. That's the valuable part, is exploring it. The part that's not as valuable is trying to uncover it. And if you can shortcut that, I guess shortcut may not be their best word, but if you can accelerate that process and then be able to spend the time on diving into it, I think it actually makes it shorter. I think it's actually more efficient if we want to look at it that way.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go with that. Yeah.
You're also allowed to say, Brendan, interesting theory, and I don't think that's true.
Yeah, no, I guess it depends again on what type of an advisor you are. If you're just somebody who wants to focus on the numbers and say, oh, let's just best interest and let's get you into a different asset allocation, then yeah, this type of work takes longer. But if you are a financial life planner, if you are a true fiduciary to the depth that I take the fiduciary standard, then I think these tools do make it more efficient in getting to know your client and what their true needs, true wants, and getting to a place where, again, we do add a lot of value.
That's a good point. Good clarification. Yes, it depends on what you want to provide. If you're just there to deliver or provide a portfolio for returns, yeah. But if you're like, hey, I want to deliver advice at the highest level I can for the best experience for my clients, then this is a more efficient way to do it. In fact, I mean, you said I don't even know. Yes, I think this is financial life planning. I feel like getting people to open up and talk about their I keep using debt as the example, but like if that's the one that keeps popping up, I just kind of look at that as like good financial planning, and life planning is almost a step beyond that. But that's maybe a different conversation for a different time. So let's say we get to the end of the exploration meeting. I'm sitting there going, yeah, this is good. I've been through the surveys. I like what you've laid out. I say, yes, I want to work with you. Sign, send you the money. What comes next?
Then we have a whole workflow of what Molly sends out with the secure links to upload data. It's the data gathering.
Yep.
Whether it's the quantitative, then we do have additional deeper questions, and which start getting us into, their values. Tell me, about your upbringing around money, some of that stuff. So, but we start digging in.
And that's in a second meeting though. So like I leave, I start uploading and sending in some of my information, documents and statements. We put another meeting on the books. I come in, and that's when we're going a little deeper and you're asking some of those questions.
Well, it could be. So this is where, again, it depends. But we want to get there. We want to start getting their data. And, so we upload data. We start talking about the goals. And again, the software that's out there is more the traditional goals. When do you want to get to retirement?
Right.
What kid's wedding? I always add the long-term care, depending on the age of what I don't talk to somebody in their 30s about long-term care, but most of our clients are in their 50s, and at least that's on the very distant horizon. But we start having conversations around that, or parents or other family members that may need family assistance. Anyway, so looking at the quantitative goals. Data gathering, what do they have? And based on the scope of service, what are we looking? What are we unpacking? And getting that all into the software that we use. Then we'll have a work session where it's, and this is Zoom nowadays, that, we'll sit down and I'll dig deeper into everything. And then we start playing out the,
everything, meaning my financial life and like what you've seen from my statements, or everything meaning like other goals that maybe didn't show up in the planning software?
Both.
Okay.
Again, every client is a little bit different. Some
Sure.
fit more into the box, but I think it's incumbent upon us as advisors to dig a little bit deeper, so if somebody says, I want to retire at 65, and with that number that people carry under their arm, we've seen
right.
and
for no other, and you ask why 65, and they're like, that's what I'm supposed to do, right?
Yeah. And the whole idea of retirement, I loved Mitch Anthony's retire mentality. How do we and what's shifting there? That opens up a whole nother box, a whole nother conversation. But I call the seasons of life? We've got spring, summer, fall, and winter. And we work with people primarily in their fall season of life. I don't call it retirement because I don't like the word. I have to use it a lot because that's what people understand. That's what people are used to. But I will question that with people. What does this look like to you? What is going to bring meaning and purpose in this season of life? Maybe so to unpack that and explore what the fall season of looks like, knowing that there will be winter. So,
what's the winter season of life?
Winter is when you are looking at legacy planning, when you are going, what is important about passing on not only the financial assets, but your wisdom, your values, your family legacy. And then also looking at putting a aging plan in place with my clients who are 65, 70 and above. we have created a whole aging plan that looks about who is your circle of care. Who are you bringing in to walk through this season of life? There are so many single agers out there that this is it's going to be a huge issue. Who are protecting these people? Identity protection, making sure they have sustainable cash flow. Who, family members, conversations. Are we talking with, the up and down generations about what's going on? How are we protecting you? How are we making you secure? How are we keeping you thriving and, independent as possible? Everybody says, I want to age in place. Great, until you can't. So that's preparing for winter and doing it well.
Yeah. And if I'm one of the people that I pick the goal, or I tell you that I want to retire, I pick the goal of retirement. Now let's say we get back together. Are you in that scenario? Are you almost always like opening up the conversation around, let's dive in deeper to this? So if I come in and that's one of my goals, is that there's a pretty good chance that you're gonna want to explore with me, hey, why retirement? What do you mean by retirement? Let's and go down that path.
Maybe, depending on the client, if they're pretty much entrenched in that, I want to turn 65 and have the number underneath my, elbow, and I want to get to this point, we'll start there. My hope that is, as our relationship evolves, that and the trust grows and they see me as somebody that maybe cares a little bit more than just about the number, that will have the opportunity to explore that. And also that life changes. And so that the next time they come and meet with me, something may have changed that gives me a seed to start working with. And
now, so we have our working session. We go a little bit deeper. You get better information, more information. And then where do we go from there?
It will be the work sessions. This is your plan. This is not our plan. I think that is another story that our industry, I'm going to go to a financial advisor and they're going to tell me what I need to do and how I need to do it. And people don't follow through with it.
That's what we want them to do.
Yeah.
Well, that's what we want them to want to do that, but it doesn't ever work that way.
And I've been in this business long enough, and I have somewhat of a controlling personality that I've had to figure out how to deal with over the years, that I've learned I can't get anybody to do anything. And I can put the best laid plan in front of you. So I've started many years ago. It's like once you come to that realization, and discovered it when you put these back in the insurance days. This is a great insurance policy. It's going to build you up cash value. You'll be able to pull it out for your kids' college education or use it at retirement. Oh my gosh, the market crashed. Well, you need to add some more to this. And people didn't want to talk about it. And, then the policy crashes, and it's, so to keep people engaged in their financial journey, we need to be their advocates. We need to be their coaches. We need to be their cheerleaders. We need to be asking the right questions in ways that we're on their side and helping them explore what they already know for themselves, but just need assistance in uncovering it or getting down to it. And that's sometimes some harder work. So the idea of laying out a plan, I think people will feel better if they are part of the plan. So our work sessions, and those could be very different. Next week, I'm having a third meeting with a client that my client manager and I were talking about, and it's like, I think I want to go through the values cards with her. I think I want to talk to her about, let's just lay out these values cards. Let's pick these cards. Let's have you look at how your spending is reflecting in this, because what we're seeing in the plan so far, we could show up and say, you don't got enough money. You know, you keep spending like this, you're going to be done in 15 years. And you're giving us a little bit longer time. Do you want to die earlier? Yeah, it's like, that's not going to work.
Do you want to die earlier?
So sitting down with her and going, all right, let's look at what it would be to create an intentional spending plan based on your values, and have her decide that instead of spending this much per month, we could show her that it's not sustainable, and having her create her intentional spending plan based on what is important to her. And then going, okay, yeah, are you willing to try that on, spending a little less per month? Let's try that on for a couple months, and showing her that projection. That may be a little bit more palatable for her. So these work sessions, I really try to design, again, not on a prescription, but on a let's figure out how to have this unfold in a way that's going to resonate, fit, be impactful to you, and that you would be willing to make a shift. Okay,
so it sounds to me like I heard your hesitancy to use the word prescription, and it's funny you said it, because in my mind that's how I was thinking through it. So you're not prescribing something, you're not diagnosing and prescribing necessarily, but you'll, based on what you've learned about the person, what you've heard, what they've told you, and maybe what they need, you have different tools and resources that for these work sessions, there's different tools or resources or directions that you can take to help them where they're at. So in this case, it was a spending problem. So you went and thought, okay, how do we help this? What's something we could do to help? It can put them in to help control the spending problem, to help them be better off with that. And you go, okay, maybe if we go through a values exercise, we can highlight, here's what's important, and what if we build a plan to spend in accordance with that? So it's like, you may not do it with everybody, but you go, based on what they need, here's one of the things I can do to help out with this person.
And this has just been time in the industry, and this commitment to my own learning and growth, that I'm able to bring this stuff to the table. I think if we compare it with the health analogy, we all want to go to the doctor and have them tell us what's wrong and give us a pill for it.
Right.
And in realizing that we're a very sick nation because of that. And if we start looking at it holistically, that might be what we want, but it's not what's going to really facilitate health and change. And I think that even we as advisors are challenged. We want a money quotient. We want a George Kinder class. We want a Mitch Anthony. We want a package that we can put together and set in front of a client and or use ourselves and do this. And there's nothing wrong with that if used wisely and tapping into our intuitive side or something else, that we can be a little creative with it and get away from that. This is the prescriptive way we need to do it as an advisor. This is the prescriptive way that our industry has said that people need to get to their goals, and kind of take all this stuff out of a box, be willing to get messy with it, and the willingness to see our clients as unique individuals that are all growing and learning and have their story, their way of looking at money in the world, and being empathetic and compassionate enough to step into a place with them to go, to say, let's look at this. Do you want to do something a little differently? Let's explore. We're in this together.
When you talk about we think that we want to go to the doctor, have them tell us what's wrong, write us a prescription, and be on our way, it makes me think about this stat that I saw a number of years ago that it's like burned in my mind, that 50% of prescriptions that are written aren't followed through on until completion. And then 25% are never even filled to begin with. And you sit there and you go, we think that's what we want, but it appears as though that may not actually be the case. One last thing that I wanted to ask you about before we move into the rapid fire 3-pack as we kind of come here towards the end is I think you've mentioned it a couple times now in a variety of ways, but when it comes to providing whatever term you want to use for this, but when it comes to giving this person, the client, their action items, their to-dos, their plan that shows, hey, here are the things that you should do or can do, however you look at that, your action items to get where you want to go. You mentioned that you don't necessarily just give it to them and hand it and send them on their way. You do a couple things like have them prioritize, have them pick what they want to do. So I guess I would want to hear you explain that and why that's important. And then anything else that you do or have changed to help them follow through and implement.
It continues to evolve. But the way we do the action items is I try to reflect why these action items align with what we've learned about you and how it's important.
Can you give us an example?
So again, utilizing some of the money quotient tools, but making them my own. They have your ideal life. What are you doing? How does it look? What are your goals? What are your concerns? And then with my pre-retirees, there's lifestyle, liquidity, longevity, and legacy. And so as you understand what kind of a lifestyle they want, what they need for liquidity, how long do they want to live, and then the legacy piece, do they have family, do they have organizations that they care about, or they have that philanthropic mindset? How do these action items align with either goals or values? People are more likely to follow through if they see why it's important to them. So I always try to make sure that we're bringing it back around to their why. Why is this part of your unique version of true wealth? The accountability piece, for example, it may be they have estate planning documents that were written when the kids were 2 and 4, and now the kids are married and have grandkids. They haven't redone anything in the past 30 years. And so to say, all right, for the legacy piece, let's start having a conversation with an attorney about what that looks like, introducing the idea of legacy letters and passing on value. There's some different tools that we like to bring into the fold there. And then when do you want to accomplish this? This is, you can give everybody all these, you need to reallocate your asset allocation. You need to consolidate all these 401ks. You need to redo your estate plan. And people are just like deer in the headlights. They're just overwhelmed. They may need some additional information. Well, what's the difference between medical power of attorney and medical or just power of attorney, durable? Or so to help them to say, do you need more education on this? What can we do to encourage and support you? Susan Bradley has all of this training on transitions and how people want to be related to, what makes a meeting meaningful to them. Some may need details. Some want the big picture. So utilizing some of Susan Bradley's tools with how to bring this to the table for clients. And then, say, well, in the next 6 months, we could do the estate planning in the next 6 months. And then they are able to, then I'm able to say, what do you need from us in order to follow through with that? Do you need us to go to the attorney meeting with you? Do you need us to give you more information? And so that way it is the accountability piece. If so-and-so is going to look at their simple plan and call their custodian and reallocate, when do you want to have that done by? And then you're able to have them check it out, build that agency. What was your financial win? Check. So that's kind of the idea behind all that.
Yeah, that as we get ready to move into the rapid fire 3-pack, do you feel like there's anything that any stone we left unturned, anything you'd want to say that needs to be said or added to the conversation at this point?
There's so much.
So that's probably not the right question.
It's like, no, I think, we covered a lot of ground. I guess if there's anything I would encourage advisors to in this business is what I have loved about it, what I've so appreciated about it is the willingness that people in this industry have had to share ideas, to encourage each other, to support us, to support each other in shifting the trajectory of an industry, let alone our clients' lives. And I just think that we get to show up authentically. We get to question, why are we in this business? And what does it mean to bring my best self to the table for our clients and for my fellow advisors?
Well said. Well said. All right, here we go. You get to gift one book to everybody that's listening. What would it be?
I go back to the very beginning with The Soul of Money with Lynn Twist.
I've actually got that one sitting over here behind me not like on the side of the bookshelf. It was given to me a couple years ago. I haven't read it. I think this is what I needed to hear to bump it up towards the top.
I see Atomic Habits up there. That's another. There's so many good ones.
Oh yeah, Atomic Habits. That one's a staple. It's been up there since day one. I've never shuffled it out. Who is the best listener in your life, and then what makes that person such a good listener?
That was a hard question. I don't think there's a lot of good listeners out there, and I would say the first person that popped into my mind is my client relationship manager, also referred to as my office goddess, Molly. And we did some training around that, empathetic listening. And I highly recommend Chapman Community Foundation, their program, Our Community Listens. It takes skill. It takes training. It takes, again, flexing that muscle. I aspire to be a good listener, and it's a tough one.
All right. Well, shout out to Molly, the office goddess, for her listening abilities. But you're right. You can't just show up and be a good listener. It's a craft. It's a skill. It can be developed, but you almost have to develop and hone it. Last one. You get the chance to hang a poster on the wall of the office of everybody listening to spread a message around the world. What would it say?
Another hard one because several popped up. I love.
Okay, you can have two posters.
Can I
if you
have
need
two?
Them. Yeah.
All right. I love, and I don't know if it was Will Rogers. It's been said by many people, but don't spend money you don't have on things you don't need to impress people you don't like. Love that one.
That. That's a good one. Yeah, that is a good one.
Anything by Carl Richards, any of his stuff is awesome. And then the final one, do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better, by Maya Angelou.
Man, those are some good ones. All right, yeah. You earned your multiple posters. So, well, Danielle, if anybody wants to know more, wants to learn more, see what you're doing, reach out. Where can they go? What should they do to find you?
My website that's focused on the fingerprints to footprints is Danielle Howard CFP. What is it? DanielleHowardForYou.com. And my phone number is 970-927-3909. I'm happy to ask questions, happy to have conversations. Danielle Howard, 4u.com.
Those links will be in the show notes. Danielle, thank you for being more of a cook than a baker. Thank you for sharing all of your wisdom and knowledge. It was a good time, and it's been it was long awaited, and it did not disappoint. So thank you.
All right. Such a pleasure having a great conversation with you, Brennan. Appreciate the opportunity.
Thanks, Danielle.
Content here is for illustrative purposes and general information only. It is not legal, tax, or individualized financial advice, nor is it a recommendation to buy, sell, or hold any specific security or engage in any specific trading strategy. Results will vary. Past performance is no indication of future results or success. Market conditions change continuously. This commentary reflects the personal opinions, viewpoints, and analyses of the guest. It does not necessarily represent those of RFG Advisory, their clients, or their employees. The commentary should not be regarded as a description of advisory services provided by the guest or RFG Advisory or performance returns of any client. The views reflected in the commentary are subject to change anytime without notice. Advisory services offered by investment advisory representatives of RFG Advisory, a registered investment advisor. The guest and RFG Advisory are unaffiliated entities. Advisory services are only offered to clients or prospective clients where RFG Advisory and its representatives are properly licensed or exempt from licensure. No advisory services may be rendered by RFG Advisory unless a client agreement is in place.